Our next story tonight is about how a known paedophile came to be running one of the most popular websites for schools. Samuel Kinge was the very model of respectability. He was an active member of his local church in Gloucestershire. He raised money for a children's home in Uganda. But tonight he's behind bars, serving a jail sentence for downloading child pornography. This is the world's largest showcase of cutting-edge technology for teachers. It's the place to come for schools looking to protect their pupils while using the internet. But even the most high-tech security systems can't stop every danger lurking on the web. We've been investigating how the boss of an internet education company gained intimate access to teachers across the country, despite being a known sex offender.
As the website owner, he has got 100% access to everybody's data. And given the history of this man, that is a very dangerous state of affairs.
This case really illustrates the problems that we have in terms of loopholes, with predators who are very determined manoeuvring themselves through these gaps.
Tonight, we reveal how an online paedophile exploited those loopholes to get close to children in the real world. This is Sparklebox, an online company that provides free classroom resources for teachers and parents to download. It's a huge hit online. It was run in Cheltenham and Evesham by this man, Samuel Kinge. A former primary school teacher, Kinge was a committed Christian and an active member of this church in the Gloucestershire village of Winchcombe. And it was his dream to take up missionary work in Uganda. But Samuel Kinge was far from what he seemed. This is him in 2005. His name then was Daniel, and he'd just been convicted for downloading sickening images of child abuse. Daniel Kinge was arrested as part of an investigation into an international paedophile ring uncovered by the FBI. Its officers were in no doubt about the severity of Kinge's crime.
These individuals prey on innocent children, they are involved in child pornography on the internet, and it actually leads to molestations of our children.
Kinge was jailed for 9 months, put on the sex offenders register and banned from working with children indefinitely. The last the public heard from Daniel Kinge was a message left online. Fast forward to the present, and Daniel Kinge has reinvented himself as Samuel Kinge, and the police officers monitoring him knew he was constructing a new life.
We were well aware of the fact that he changed his name. He can do that within the law as long as he tells us, which he did do so, and that enabled us to continue to monitor him and effectively manage the risk he posed.
But at the time, that risk wasn't made clear to the users of Sparklebox.
I can understand that teachers who now have found out that the Sparklebox website is run by a convicted sexual offender may feel aggrieved. We may inform people if we feel there's a necessity for them to need to know in order to protect themselves. So we have that potential to tell people if we thought that it was required in the circumstances. But on this occasion we didn't feel that that was necessary. His involvement with the Sparklebox website didn't bring him into contact with children, and therefore we couldn't interfere.
David Wright works for the South West Grid for Learning, which oversees broadband access to thousands of schools.
Internet safety plays a huge part in what we do. It's like filtering, firewalls and security measures, but also child protection is everything.
When rumours about Kinge's real identity began to surface, the Grid took action.
We contacted the police, Avon, Somerset and indeed West Mercia, as well as legal advisors. Following that contact, we took the decision to filter Sparklebox for our schools. That meant that schools, by default, couldn't go and access that particular website.
But teachers and parents were still using Kinge's website at home and linking to it through social networking sites with hundreds of members. Some of them are teachers, students or parents, and a lot of the times they're uploading photos of their own children onto the site. What are the risks there?
When you invite someone to be a friend on your social networking site, you're opening the door to your house virtually. The privacy is not there, and one needs to be very, very careful about that, because, as I say, all is not as it appears in the virtual world.
We look here at the actual Sparklebox website. What are the dangers there?
What this man has done is he created a genuine website that has useful resources for teachers and children, but unfortunately, as the website owner, he has total access to all the information and data that they have put on this website.
And given who he is,
that's a very dangerous state of affairs.
So Kinge, a known offender, was able to change his name, set up a company working with schools and carry on his online activities. No law was broken and the public were none the wiser. That included most members of the church in Winchcombe, where Kinge had become an integral part of the community. He even used his IT skills to help redesign its website. But we've discovered the minister, Brian Knightley, did in fact know of Kinge's past. He didn't want to take part in the film, but told us,
working in conjunction with the police who approved his attendance here at church, strategies to monitor him were put in place. He worked within a larger team that together designed the church website. This site has since been removed and replaced.
With Kinge being so closely monitored by the authorities, was there any need to worry? Well, it seems so. This month Samuel Kinge was back in court. His crime? Once again downloading indecent images of children. More than 400 of them, and some of the very worst kind. Acting on a tip-off from another police force, Kinge's computers were seized.
We identified one computer was significant enough for us to carry out a full forensic examination of that machine, and we were able to look at certain hidden files and find the evidence that he'd downloaded indecent images of children. They were particularly horrible pictures involving very young children and babies, and not only that, he was doing it on a daily basis.
So, all the monitoring of Kinge the law allowed just wasn't good enough to contain the threat he posed online. And we've discovered it also failed in keeping him away from children in the real world. Kinge was allowed to travel abroad on several occasions.
When Samuel Kinge decided that he was going to travel to Uganda, he did indeed tell us and notified us thereby complying with his requirements. So, whilst we were aware of the travelling, we weren't able to prevent it from happening.
But we can reveal what Kinge didn't tell the police, that in Uganda he was having direct contact with children. He'd organised visits to an orphanage and even spoke of sponsoring a child through a local Ugandan charity that knew nothing of his background.
Yeah, clearly we do have information now that indicate that he did get involved in contact with children and visiting orphanages. With that information now, we would seek to make an application to prevent that travel and would do so in the future.
The police say there is no evidence Kinge ever directly groomed children, but is a system that relies on the cooperation of sex offenders themselves and doesn't give the wider public any warnings really good enough?
Well, the fact that a predator who has already been convicted for downloading abusive images is then allowed to repackage himself quite cleverly, I would say is very, very dangerous and wrong. Just keeping within the limits of the law is actually letting him get away with a lot. It's very difficult for the police, however hard they're working, to really pin him down, because what perhaps doesn't yet exist is extra monitoring that needs to take place.
We wanted to ask the Home Office whether new laws were needed, but due to a current legal appeal over the Sex Offenders Register, it wouldn't take part in our film. In a statement, it said,
"We have recently introduced new measures to strengthen the powers available to deal with sex offenders and build on the UK's existing tough regime. They will come into force in March of 2010.
Kinge is currently serving a 1-year sentence, but is likely to be free and back online within 6 months.
There is nothing in law that will stop Samuel Kinge being able to still be involved in Sparklebox. However, we now have an order with a condition attached to it that prevents him from using a computer other than one that's monitored by the police. And I think that's a really powerful tool for us to continue to manage the risk posed by Samuel Kinge.